Welcome to the Au Jus. I'm your host, Beefloaf. This show is being sponsored by our friends, Punky's Pizza and Pasta, located at 2600 South Wallace, my personal favorite eatery in the neighborhood. They have the best selection of pizza and pastas as well as sandwiches and salads of any spot in Bridgeport. Currently, they have a terrific Monday nights only special. One medium cheese pizza for $12.99. No promo codes, no minimums. Just place the order at 3 p.m. or later, and you can get a one medium cheese pizza at $12.99. Toppings can be added, but for the normal prices. Hit the website, punkyspizza.com, for all of your carry-out or delivery needs, or to cater your next party. You can also call 312-842-2100. The Scarlotta family will take care of you. Punky's Pizza and Pasta. The 108ers are also hosting a live show Saturday, January 25th at 8 p.m. at Reggie's Rock Club, 2105 South State Street in the South Loop. We have special guests, Scott Merkin, Dave Williams from Barstool, and Herb Lawrence. Tickets are $20 online. Go to 108.ing/live. That's 108.ing/live to buy the tickets. Go buy them now. The show will sell out, so get your ass in there right now. $20 is as cheap as we've ever done this, so please get in there. Lastly, this show is also powered by you, loyal 108 supporter. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Feel free to tickle the undercarriage in the process. Like, comment, turn on notifications, and most definitely super chat, because that's how we get paid. It's how we continue to make the content you know and love. Tonight's guest... He blogs Notre Dame hoops at 1 Foot Down, which is an SB Nation joint. He's a super fan of The Wire and Sopranos. And once upon a pandemic ago, he invited me to his secret internet poker games. Pnoles, welcome to the Au Jus, my friend.
Thanks so much, Beefloaf. It's been too long. You don't call. I haven't seen you. And hey, it's all my fault. It's all my fault, to be honest.
I was thinking about that too. I was thinking, I don't reach out to you hardly at all. We haven't. And then we used to play in these poker games. And, you know, after the pandemic, I'm sure you and your friends still play, but, like, that time when everyone's home, you're, like, looking for other people to jump in this stuff. And I probably played, like, 20 or 30 tournaments with you guys, and I had a lot of fun playing in those way back in the day. My game is rusty now, Pnoles. How about you? Have you been playing? Are you still playing poker at all?
No, certainly not in the online format. And you know what? This is going to fit perfectly with everything you know about me, but I would have such anxiety the day of about, like, turnout and all that, and I'd be, like, watching my phone, like, why isn't it beeping? Why is no one, like, bought into the tournament, right? And, you know, I feel like I'm almost like, because I don't care. I would do that with, like, 7 people, right? Like, I don't need, like, 40, 50, 60, but I just, like, don't want to feel like I'm disappointing people by saying, oh, I paid for this, and now there's going to be, like, you know, just a tiny pot. So, like, that kind of died down because of my own personal anxiety rather than me, like, not having any fun with it. But I don't play enough. I wish I could get out and play more.
That's how I feel too. My game is rusty as hell, and it's like, well, if I go out with my wife and you know and Treasy and his wife and go to a casino or something, I'm not gonna sit down and play poker. We're gonna play some table games. We'll play some slots or video poker. I'm not gonna like spend 8 hours bending an elbow around a poker table. And so that's why the online games were so much more convenient. And back then too, you'd start those tournaments at like 7 or 8 o'clock. And if you won the tournament, you'd only be up till like 1. So it wasn't that bad of a night of like, you know, just like, oh my God, this is going forever. Like if my wife went to bed and I was still playing, she's like, all right, you got a shot. You got a shot to get the money tonight. I was like, yeah, that's something.
Well, that was just it. I was up till 1 every night because I had to stay till the bitter end, even though I got knocked out like 4 hours ago. So that was the one downside.
Yeah, usually you would get knocked out in a horrifying way. I'd peep open other tables to see what's going on, and you'd have like set over set. You'd be getting knocked out on or something insane, something terrible.
This is so bad. I had such that's left me with a lot of mental scars.
I love it. Let me get to this drink real quick. Trey Williams says Pnoles just don't get it. I don't know. Do you know Trey Pnoles?
Yeah, no, of course. And he's I believe in Chuck Garfine's camp on this one because I think he's the first person to say that I just don't get it. So, so now I think that's a thing. Thank you very much, Trey.
Beautiful. Thanks, Trey. Appreciate you. All right, Pnoles, I wanted to get you on here because you said something recently on the internets that piqued my interest, and I'm not seeing this from a lot of people. We have a lot of downtrodden, beaten down White Sox fans, but I saw a tweet from you, and I'll pull it up on the screen. You put, and this is on December 30th, so not that long ago. You said, I might be in the minority, but I'm very interested in the White Sox 2025 season. Whether or not they beat meager expectations will be a good indicator of whether they're correcting course. So let's dive in right here. Why exactly are you interested in the 2025 White Sox that so few seem to be interested in currently?
Well, I think that it's been. I think last year was tough, and I think everyone knew, like, you know, they're kind of on the downswing now, and that things are kind of just getting worse and worse. This is, don't think I am going out too far onto a limb to say next year is going to be better. We're going to start to see some improvement. Some of that might just be dumb luck, regression to the mean, whatnot. But this is kind of like where we were, and I don't think it's quite as good a situation as we were in 2017 when we got like a bunch of world-beating prospects knocking on the door. Right. But at the same time, this is kind of a junction where we've seen what the worst is going to be. You know, knock on wood, right?
Just happened.
Yep. yeah, got to. But I think that we're starting to see where they're going to go from here, and I think I'm very interested, particularly in this season. This is an organization that has had a systemic issue with developing position player prospects for, since like the days of Aaron Rowan and Joe Creedy. They just don't get guys coming through the system. I mean, obviously you had somebody like Moncada, who's was by trade, and then Luis Robert was like, big international signing. Jose Abreu, I guess you can kind of put in the same category, but they've had such trouble developing position players, particularly internally. You've got Tim Anderson was a big win. Jake Berger, I think, was a maybe more modest win, but still a win nonetheless. But really, aside from that, it's kind of hard to pick out guys that they've been able to turn into position players at the major league club within like the last decade or so. And I think that because they're going with Ryan Fuller, and because they seem to be committed to modernizing the way they're doing things, I'm very interested to see if that bears fruit, because that probably more than any other sort of free agent signing or big trade they make down the road is going to determine whether they can get us back to the happy memories of Larry Garcia hitting a 3-run homer against the Astros in 2021, right? So that's what I'm looking forward to, and I think that this year is a key stepping stone towards getting that kind of excitement again.
I don't disagree with you, and that is interesting, the approach there. It is kind of the organizational crust that needs to change. Like we saw, you can't just trade for the high-end prospects and they'll save the day. We just tried it, didn't work. And I think in other instances too, people want ownership to spend. And that is, I'm totally for that. But sometimes you'd see ownerships try to spend without developing kind of the infrastructure, and that doesn't always work as well. So it's interesting to look at it from the perspective of, you got to fix this first before you can ever have any promise to get on this next thing. Are you sure, though, that your renewed interest doesn't have anything to do with being bored as fuck with how bad the Bulls are? Are you positive, right?
I can't even watch the Bulls. I'm fully not I'm not a CHSN guy yet. I'm talking about shit. It's almost like I'm kind of dyed in the wool about that. I'm kind of committed until they try to make things work. Now, when the White Sox come back, then I think I'm going to have to make some tough decisions on whether I want to swallow my pride. But no, I haven't. Honestly, I have not. Other than when I was at a bar and I saw a little bit of them on TV, I haven't seen much of the Bulls. So it's really it doesn't really have much to do with that. It's really all just about excitement about the White Sox trying to do things differently than they have in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned a little bit of the organizational approach here. What are you most excited about seeing here? Are you excited about the Ryan Fuller hitting program? Are you excited about year 2 of Brian Bannister's pitching program, which bore some fruit in year 1, but also had they stumbled quite a bit. We could pick out a bunch of different things. Or Will Venable taking over the top spot, and kind of like a situation where it almost looks like, oh, they have the modern manager. Are we ready as fans for the modern manager? Which might look a lot different than the managers we're used to in the past.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see what Will Venable does with the team for sure. And Brian Bannister, I mean, I think is still a very significant positive for the organization. I may be a little bit less focused on him just because we already have him. But I would say that what Ryan Fuller does with the hitters is probably what I'm most interested in looking at. He mentioned, I think, in an interview about bringing in the TrackMan software, which I think is a little bit more advanced. I know there was a lot of ballyhoo about Jake Berger. Part of it coming from me. I was very all about Jake Berger working with the iPitch, right? But I think they want
him to take it on the road. They got to take it on the road with him. He only hits at home, and he doesn't have it on the road.
That's
right.
Got to take it with him. Yeah, I was all about that. And I'm sorry, I said the wrong. I didn't say TrackMan. I meant Traject, I think, is the name of the software. And I think like 19 teams in the league were using it, and I don't think it's too much of a leap to suggest the White Sox maybe were one of the 11 teams that weren't when Ryan Fuller's talking about that as he's coming into the organization. Could be wrong, but I think I'm excited to see that and have that sort of advanced preparation kind of disseminated not only throughout the major league team but also the minor leagues. And that's, I think, where the bulk of my excitement is, because we got to start developing some hitters, and I'm just delighted that they're trying something different.
Now, what do you think of their approach lately? I've noticed that there has been a specific approach with regards to the types of hitters, materially, the types of hitters that Chris Getz has been acquiring. there are a lot of guys that are you'd put them on the positive side of the ledger with regards of swing decisions, but maybe they're not as toolsy or not as power forward, because when you start looking at a lot of these guys, there's not a lot of pop necessarily in the younger dudes that are coming through, but they are guys that control the strike zone well, maybe make a little more contact. What do you think about that early approach so far? And are you not worried about it, given that, oh, well, if they make good decisions, they'll hit for some power?
I think, I mean, it is definitely a concern that you want it long term. You're going to need guys that hit for power. But I mean, we're talking about a team that has perpetually been near the bottom of the league in walk rate. And if you want to talk about short term gains, I think that bringing in a bunch of guys who can walk close to 10% is probably the quickest way to do it. Now, obviously, needing folks to hit the ball out of the park is a major need. I mean, I personally cringe whenever I hear, even though it's true, I for some reason, this is like a pet peeve with me, the ball go far, team go far thing. Like, I'm just like, I see it all the time. Like, I just want to
it's so old now.
It's out when I see it, but like, it's not false. I just don't like it for whatever reason.
Love it.
But yeah, I think that it's definitely a good start. And I mean, the organization has long needed an overhaul of just getting guys to make better swing decisions start to finish. Hopefully the Traject software can help with that, help with pitch recognition, and just kind of get them prepared for the types of different pitches that opposing starters can throw. And I could see how if you're underprepared for that, with how advanced pitch tunneling has gotten these days, whether you're not able to really recognize things as early if you're not ready for it. So that's, I think, a good place to start.
And especially every team's got a billion relievers, and you're not going to see them like more than once during a home like a series. Like, that's going to be brutal.
Right? Yeah. No, that's like just straight out of left field, and guys you're totally not ready for. So I do think that power maybe is a little bit of a concern, but hopefully they can solve that. Hopefully they can draft and develop. But I think that just seeing if this commitment to putting guys with plate discipline into the lineup translates well here, and they're still able to do that under the program that they're implementing.
I love it. Ian Eskridge in the comments says 21 teams now use Traject. So yeah, so I assume the White Sox being one of them. Let's get to a drink here. Longtime guy, Nathan Sheba, he says, Pnoles, what makes you think we're in better position than we were in 2017 that ended in my utter despair asking for a friend? Go ahead. The floor is yours, Pnoles. I'm going to drink some Rolling Rock beer.
I don't. We just lost 121 games. We don't have the farm system we had in 2017. I think we are in a considerably worse position than we were in 2017. But that being said, there were clearly some systemic organizational issues that existed back then. I'm a firm believer that the reason that the previous rebuild didn't fell apart was not because of an absence of a single Bryce Harper or a single Manny Machado, which again, getting those guys would have been instead of, not in addition to, the guys that they did get. I think that it is really just that these waves of talent that Rick Hahn was talking about just never materialized. And anytime anything went wrong with the front lines, there was nobody there to pick up the slack, and it was usually a bunch of terrible players who dragged down the roster. If the White Sox are now committed to improving their player development, they're going to find themselves with better depth. And instead of like when a starter goes down, maybe you got like a one WAR guy that you can plug in at second base, and he can hold the line for a couple of months if need be, and it's not going to be a huge drag. Whereas before, you're throwing some below replacement level dreck, and usually they have the magic of finding the wrong guys on the waiver wire somehow over and over and over again.
Hahn was great at that, at finding the worst guy on the waiver wire.
He loved it. Yeah, give that guy a job. So hopefully, if they've really improved with getting guys to learn how to hit at the major league level, then that is one possible way that we could be in better position than we were last time, because we will potentially have those waves of talent.
Fingers crossed. I couldn't agree more. When you think about this thing turning around, going in the right direction, or even just things you might see in 2025, Pnoles, where do you expect to see the first gains pop out from this squad? Where do you first expect to, like, you're watching this team for a while and you're like, oh, okay, that's pretty good, or that's promising? Where do you expect that to come from?
I mean, I think that if anything, it's got to be on the hitting side of things. And I'm saying this just because with the pitchers, a couple of these guys broke in a little bit last year. I don't think it's too much of a stretch to say that the guys the White Sox are throwing into the rotation, at least at the outset, are lower upside guys who are maybe going to stick around towards the middle, the back end of the rotation long term. Obviously, we've got Smith and Schultz coming through. I think that's where the real hope lies with starting pitching, and that's a little bit of a ways off. I think that what I'm hoping and expecting is just to see a couple of guys someplace on this roster to emerge as major league regulars that we can count on for the future, because we are really devoid of that. What if Brian Ramos just decides to have like a breakout season, or Chase Bedroth when he comes up, like maybe he shows that he can, those contact skills translate, and he can put up an OBP like in the mid 300s or something like that from second base. I think that would be great. But just see, and of course, the catching tandem, Edgar Quero and Kyle Teal, just having those guys, if somebody can establish themselves as a starter, like that's where I think the bulk of the excitement is this year, is just understanding that they're doing something differently, and that they, even though no one guy is a tremendous shot to be this superstar player, just starting to see the pieces come together. And maybe, just maybe, those core charts, Beefloaf, that you put off of the team score, maybe it'll be a little bit less of a running joke this time around.
Maybe there'll actually be some usable pieces that stay there.
We don't have...
Yeah, exactly. Maybe those pieces will stick around for a little bit. I was thinking that too, Pnoles, because before you had a lot of the superstar talent, you're waiting for the guys, and you still have some of those guys, but you're looking around and you're like, what? But what if that guy just sticks? What if he just becomes a guy like a major league regular? That would be great. And they have more of that hanging around right now and kind of like seeping up currently. Not stars, just guys you heard of. And I wrote a blog recently on Frontline108.com about, I tried to tie in the wire. I know you're a big wire guy, as I am as well. I tried to tie in the 40-degree day and the 40 future value prospects and how they need a couple of those to pop. And that's a good place to look too. Even if you're not looking at the major league team, which one of those guys is making some ground, especially the position players, because it's been quite a problem for the Sox.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that piece when you read it. I thought it was great, and that's just the kind of thing that seems to happen for other teams that just has not happened for the White Sox. Other team, it's allowed to have a surprise guy break through that you weren't expecting, and just have him be part of your team for 5 to 7 years in a productive role. And we're just not used to that happening. And
right.
I think that just getting a few of those wild cards, when's it our turn to win the lottery? Well, not as much of a lottery as we think when we're, training hitters with methods from the Stone Age. So
yeah, give me a problem. All right, I got to ask you this question, and I'm going to start asking everyone who comes on this show this question this year. How many wins would make this White Sox season fun for you? Because we're coming off the season where you had the most losses in modern history. And we're looking at like, okay, it's still an entertainment product. It's still something we're devoting our time to. Where can you throw the bullseye? Like, if they win that amount of games, I'll probably have fun with this team.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be tough, because I feel like even a good season is going to feature an awful lot of losing, and losing, knowing the way things have gone around here, losing in an awful fashion. I think that for it to be a fun season, it's going to have to be one where it's like, okay, we finished whatever 20, 30 games out of first place, but we know that next year we're on the right path and things are going to gradually get better. I think that, I think I tweeted out a little bit ago that I was pretty confident they would lose fewer than 110 games. I don't think that rises to the level of fun if we're hovering right around there. But let's say, if they get to something like, I'd say like in the 65 to 70 range, because if that happens, that means that enough things went right that you can still bank on this idea that they're moving in the correct direction. I mean, you get to 65 to 70, you're under the 100 loss margin, and you've got another year of development for some of your critical guys, and you can start to maybe see how things could get exciting in the next year or two. But I'd say that's probably around where my benchmark is. If they can win 65 to 70, I would be a happy camper with this season.
I love it. I mean, they win 65 to 70. My guy, Chris Getz, he's gonna be jazzed up. He's gonna be pumped up. So that's I'm putting you down for 65. I'm gonna put you at the lower end of it. You get to 65. You're gonna be happy and be elated. Now let's get to something that you're not as happy about, Patrick. The White Sox hired Phil Nevin, and they hired him as an assistant to the general manager, somewhere kind of off the path, not in the normal. I put up we did this on the last 108 podcast. I put up the White Sox baseball operations mafia org chart. He's not on the org chart. He's kind of off to the side here. He's not part of this right now. But I saw that you were pretty pissed about this. Why are you so down on the Phil Nevin hire? Go ahead. The floor is yours, my friend.
I think Pissed might be a little bit of an exaggeration, and I'm going to go a little tinfoil hat on you. I
Let's
think
do it.
in the near future here, Beefloaf. I think
Love
that.
it.
So here's kind of what I'm thinking is that there's the connection between Phil Nevin and Tony La Russa is obvious, and obviously Phil Nevin.
sure.
I mean, in my opinion, thank goodness, did not get the managerial job. Maybe there was some sort of like backroom handshake or something. Oh, we're going to find a place for this guy someplace. And you know what? It's not like I think in his role that there's any sort of major harm that I think he can do. Like, I mean, this isn't like, this isn't like, giving Tony La Russa the keys to the manager job, a few years ago, right? Like, it's
that's kind of wanted to check because I wanted to see if you thought, oh, is this the start of a La Russa coup for this whole thing, or is this just a guy that like, okay, he's kind of a smart baseball guy, Tony likes him, we'll just bring him in, we'll throw him a salary kind of thing.
And that might be it, but the thing that bothers me about it is less that I think Phil Nevin is going to make some negative impact on the team. But this is an organization with a history of nobody understanding who's in charge. And it's not that I don't want Phil Nevin in his role. It's that I don't want to question whose decision it was to put him there. I don't want the chain of command. I don't want to have to even think about that. I don't want that to be a question. I don't want that to be something that I apply to subsequent decisions down the road. And that's really the only problem I had with it is that until these sorts of things stop happening, I'm never going to be free of the specter of Tony La Russa in my mind. And really, to be fair, this could have nothing to do with Tony La Russa. Chris Getz could be like, I liked him. I like this guy. I don't want to make him the manager, but I'm going to put him. This could all be Chris Getz, but I don't want to have to wonder that. I don't want to have to wonder that.
I love it. I love the and you know what's funny is my brother Trezy also does not like the Phil Nevin hire. But the reason why is a little different. We did some stuff on our podcast with regards to Grady Sizemore because Sizemore was in the manager chair. Then you slid Sizemore kind of over, but he's still kind of right there. And he just didn't win the manager job. And now there's the current manager there. And Sizemore's there, and he's friends with the front office, and he's right next to the current manager. So what, now you're going to bring in another guy who did not win the manager job and put him in the house too? Like, how many people are going to be talking behind Will Venable's back, and who's he have to watch out for? Because you're putting all the guys who were trying to be manager right there next to him. That's a little uncomfortable.
That's a fair point. I don't know how often the guy who doesn't get the manager job just winds up with a different job for the same team. I mean, I'm genuinely wondering. I don't know. I'm not like crossing every guy that's ever failed a managerial role off the list to make sure, but it doesn't feel to me like something that happens all that frequently.
I wouldn't think so either. Right? So, yes, the White Sox were starting to get away from their weirdness in building, but there's a tangential weirdness still hanging around. So it is fair. But you're right, Pnoles. Phil Nevin might just be a guy who Chris Getz thinks, he's pretty smart. He could probably help us in on the development side or maybe do some scouting for us. And great, we'll bring him in here. People seem to like him. Fine, cool, we'll do that. But the specter of
could be
Tony's doing something. we don't know for sure. We don't know. It's in under their cloak. Yeah. So, well, anyway, I'll leave all of you out there to decide what you think of this Phil Nevin. And if Phil Nevin starts popping up like that one guy who I'm sure is in the CIA, who they don't bring up anymore. What's the guy who's like the secret agent guy that Jeff Passan brought up, and then no one has mentioned this dude again, and he's like overseeing the rebuild of the whole front office. I forget what this guy's name is. Yeah, he got brought up in the Jeff Passan article, and it's like he has this weird job, but he's not a baseball guy. He just kind of oversees anyway. The White Sox have some weird shit going on. Hopefully it turns into something good. Now you, my friend, were put on blast. There's no other way to even say this, okay? You put out a tweet, and this was back on December 12th. First off, you're disrespecting my man Gus Varland. I didn't see this tweet initially. I'm going to kick you in the nuts for this. But hang on, I'll read this tweet to the people watching. It says, okay, either one, really checked out at the end of last season, or two, this is a fake person. Who the hell is this? There's no way this person threw 19 White Sox games last season. Even less of a chance he was really freaking good. 24 Ks, 4 walks, 1 home run, 20 in the third innings. Gus Varland, yes, Gus Varland was really freaking good, Pnoles. He helped me win a steak dinner bet from Josh Nelson when I had the runs allowed, and they snuck under 818 and a half, the number that we had. It ended up at 813. A big reason why was this guy came out of goddamn nowhere and was pitching terrific. Now, I've seen this guy in uniform, and the White Sox decided... hang on. The White Sox decided, fuck Pnoles, and we're going to make a video on this, and I didn't put the video in here. So defend yourself. What the hell's going on here?
First of all, I always love when I can see exactly what somebody searched for to find the tweet with the "Who the hell is this?" in bold, and then the other instances of those words being bolded elsewhere in the tweet. That's great. Love that. Yeah. So I think that the former is definitely true. I mean, I'm going to be honest. I was checked out. I think a lot of people were. I had a little bit of a partial reason on account of my daughters playing softball. I got real into like coaching both their teams, in addition to playing myself. So I'm out on a softball field, like, pretty darn close to 5 days a week, which honestly, heaven for me. I loved it. But I mean, the White Sox didn't give me a lot of reason to record their stuff and stay up till midnight trying to see what I missed and all that. So I wasn't too up on my business at the end of last season, at least compared to where I was in seasons past. So when I saw was just kind of just doing some research, looking at the White Sox roster, and I go to the Baseball Reference page. I'm like, what the? Who's this guy? who did this, right? And so I tweeted out. I realized, okay, the first thing that the diehards or masochists or whatever you want to call them, who are still watching White Sox baseball in August and September, yourself included, I guess.
Yes, absolutely.
So they're going to be like, okay, they're going to be the first to call me out on my shit and be like, what? You don't know Gus? You don't know my guy Gus? So it's like, all right, I was kind of just making a joke about how little I'd been really tapped in. But then when I saw that, I forget who replied to that tweet, and somebody just tagged me, and I was just like, oh my god. So when he said, I'm a real person, that just flat out there's my nameplate and everything. I literally just fell out of my chair, and I people texting me all day about this, and just talking about how bad I got cooked. But I loved it. I loved the video. I think Gus Varland should try a different phone besides the bullpen phone if he wants pizza. But I think
agreed.
I feel like maybe this is like a truce between me and the White Sox Twitter account at this point. I had my fun with them. They had their fun with me. Maybe we can be on good terms now.
I love it. I love that they're willing to go there, because you're right. The emphasis of it is I wasn't paying attention, even though I'm a big Sox fan. And they're like, well, fine. We're just going to play. We're going to mess with that here. And Gus, you want to do this shit? And he's like, yeah, sure. I'll jump in on that. It's pretty cool that they chose that approach, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, absolutely. I thought it was a lot of fun. I mean, obviously, a little bit of a foot in my mouth type thing, but at the same time, I thought it was a fun video. Thought it was cool of Gus to step out and do that. And I really hope the White Sox, start promoting their guys a little bit more like that. I think rather than just tweeting out holy sheets every couple of minutes,
Well, I mean, he's R.I.P. in peace for Gavin Sheets. He's no longer with us. Thank goodness.
Part of me still thinks they're going to be tweeting that out for some reason.
they got to push the retweet out there. So you don't know the bullpen that saved my ass down there. Here, I want to just see if you know some of my bullpen aces that helped me down the stretch. Pnoles, I'm going to give you a couple names. Yep. Do you know who Justin Anderson is?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know who Fraser Ellard is?
Yes.
Don't you lie. I saw the hesitation. All right. One more.
I mean, he's actually, I've seen him throw an inning.
All right, one more. Prelander Baroa. You know who that is?
Yeah, I think I'm kind of a little hazy on that one. I mean, it's a name. So I'll put it this way: I've kind of I've read about him in the off season, but if you asked me on September 30th who that was, I would have been like,
yeah, what was that exactly? Someone from the Facebook comments says Mahler. Yeah, Brian Mahler. That's the guy. He's the Navy SEAL. Yeah, and he's in charge with helping them reorganize the front office, but he's totally not a baseball guy. And no one had said shit about him until Passan came in and did an article. That name's in there. And then I asked Scott Merkin on the show after the end of the year, do you know who this Brian Mahler is? Oh, yeah. And he totally brushed off oh, yeah, I knew who he was, but I didn't really know all of what he's doing. I was like, you were told to keep quiet, motherfucker. I could tell when someone's not supposed to say nothing about a guy. And then he didn't say nothing else about him. I'm like, the guy's been around all year and you know who he is, but okay, no one's written anything about him. No one said anything about him. Come on now.
Now this is coming back to me because I remember I think Jim put something out there on Sox Machine about this guy and having somebody who's completely with no baseball experience kind of being a mastermind behind some of this. This is all right, we're getting it. I'm relearning things right now.
I gotta figure out a way to bring him back out here because I feel like he's been under talked about and we gotta cook up a few more theories about him personally. But Pnoles, Thanks for providing your insight on why you are very interested in the 2025 White Sox. Your frowny face on the Phil Nevin hire and Gus Varland shaming you in the public square. Remember, we ain't trying to be writing the show. We're just trying to understand. Is there anything you want to plug before you go?
I don't really have a lot that I want to
ND basketball? No ND basketball?
It's getting harder and harder to plug. I'll tell you that much. Like we've had a rough go. Otherwise, this is where, if it was like a couple months ago, I'd talk about how Micah Shrewsbury's taken us back to the promised land, and then 270-pound guy sat on Marcus Burton's knee, and now we're toast. So that's how it is.
That's funny. You mentioned you haven't watched much Bulls. I don't have watched a single Bulls game from not having CHSN, but also I haven't really watched any college basketball yet. Even though, like DePaul supposedly had a good record. I'm like, really? How does DePaul have a decent team? I haven't caught goddamn anything yet, so I got to get myself into flow before we get down to March Madness. It's already in January.
Yeah, you got a couple of months. I mean, once football dies down, you'll have plenty of time in your schedule to figure things out and pretend you know what you're doing like everybody else.
Absolutely. Pnoles, thanks for stopping by, my friend.
Al, it's been great. Thanks a bunch, Beefalo.
Take care. That was Pnoles. Great to have him on here. It had been far too long not having him on here. Next week's guest, I'm going to have Alex Rude come through. Alex Rude and I are going to, he hasn't really talked much about the White Sox on this show in a long time, and I kind of want to get some thoughts on the direction that the White Sox are going with him, the Will Venable signing, kind of how they've stripped down the roster, and also kind of built it back up with some fringe players just to see what he's thinking about that. Thanks to Punky's Pizza and Pasta and all the 108 families up in the YouTube comments. Appreciate you smashing the like button, comments, and of course drinks and tips. We'll see you on Thursday for the 108 podcast. We have a gigantic guest. I'm not going to say who it is, but you can probably guess it's that time of year, and we usually have this certain guest on. So take care, peace, and I love all of you. Bye.